Hi, listeners. Welcome back to the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. And before I introduce episode 58, I wanted to give a special shout out to our episode sponsor, Flame Decon Soap. So big thank you and hugs to Tara over at Flame. If you want to hear about her story and how she created her product, you can actually scroll back to episode 37 of the podcast. But I'm going to encourage you to head on over to her website, flamedecon.com, and check out her products. I actually bought them for my crew as Christmas gifts last Christmas, and they absolutely love them. Okay, episode 58 of the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast is exciting because I got to sit down in person with my friend Alex Griff. Alex is a 19-year veteran of the fire service, and he currently holds the rank of lieutenant with the Hazel Crest Fire Department. He is also the coordinator of the MABAS 24 CPAT program and a field staff instructor with Romeoville Fire Academy and the Illinois Fire Service Institute. Alex and I spent a really long time talking about the CPAT test, its reliability, its validation, how to train for it. It was just a great conversation. We also talked about his casual 4-mile swim that he's planning on doing on Father's Day this year for the Navy SEAL Foundation. So if you are listening to this podcast when it comes out and it is not yet Father's Day 2023, click on the link in the show notes. And if you are so inclined, go over and donate to Alex's fundraising event. As always, please share the podcast with another firefighter who could benefit from the information. Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. And we'll probably get calls in the middle of it and it'll be all messed up. Okay. Hey, podcast listeners, it's AZ back for another episode of the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. And I'm here today with my friend, Alex Griff. Alex, say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
That was a little lackluster. Well, he didn't get any sleep though.
I followed you said hello, say hello to the people.
All right. I probably should have set you up better. All right, Alex, sleep deprived. How much sleep did you get cumulatively on your 48?
I'd say maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Total.
Yeah, we did 8 after midnight last night. And then the Saturday shift, we did, I think 5 after midnight. 4 of them were engine runs. So just one of those long 48s. I feel good now.
You do? Mm-hmm. Are you caffeinated?
I am.
Out of curiosity, what's in your water bottle there?
Element.
Oh, which flavor do you like?
Watermelon.
My friend Shantae is big, I think, on the grapefruit. Okay, but we're digressing. I'm sleep deprived. He's sleep deprived. Let's get to the questions. Who is Alex Griff?
So I am 38-year-old lieutenant, work in Hazel Crest. Grew up in Oak Lawn, so kind of local, and just pretty much just a regular guy doing a job that I love, one day at a time.
A regular guy doing regular guy stuff?
Regular guy stuff. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can relate. No, I can't. Actually, I can't relate at all, but I know what you're saying. Okay, Alex, how are you changing the world?
Well, I think as far as like job-related stuff goes for changing the world, trying to just get like one person a little bit healthier a day at a time, like 1% better, trying to make whoever I can help 1% better each day. And if it doesn't come like within the job, if I can help somebody outside of the job get 1% better, I think that's who I like to be and who I like to say I'm changing myself and them.
I like it. I like it very much. And we'll get into that, how you're getting 1% better every day in a little bit. But the big question, what sets your soul on fire?
Rock and roll music.
Tell me more.
It's pretty much like my everything.
Okay.
Music, rock and roll from the 50s, 60s, 70s, kind of skip the 80s a little bit.
You skip the hairband?
I like hairband, but overall, I'll go there. I got to be in the right mood.
Okay.
But
okay.
that's, vinyl records, concerts. That is my number one hobby. Love it.
Okay, and I'm just going to set this one up like a softball for you to lob. Who is your favorite artist?
Bruce Springsteen.
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
Yes, I picked up on that on your social media. All right, rock and roll music sets your soul. Do you play any instruments?
I don't. I actually have a collection of 7 guitars.
That you don't play?
But I love how they look, so I have them hanging all over the place. And I have a couple replica guitars of some of my favorite band members that, Paul McCartney, Bruce Springsteen.
But none of the 80s hair band. Wow. I think you just missed that. You weren't born and...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like it. If I had like Poison, Motley Crue, like I will get down with them. But it's got to be, they're not my first choice.
All right. We'll agree to disagree on that, okay?
Fair enough.
Okay. I own actually 0 vinyl records.
Well,
nope, that's not true. And I might give it to you if you want it, but it's not rock and roll. I think I have a copy of The Village People. Wild and Sleazy, it might be called. I'll look when I get home. You might be getting a gift in the mail.
Hence
I'm sure.
Why I skipped the 80s.
No, that was the 70s.
Okay.
That was the 70s. Okay. All right. We're all over the place here already. I brought Alex on today because he is the head honcho in charge of MABAS 24 CPAT. First of all, what is CPAT? What does that mean? What are we measuring? Tell me all the things.
So CPAT stands for Candidate Physical Abilities Test. And ultimately, it's your entry-level physical fitness test to get into full-time, part-time contract fire department. It used to be measured only for full-time career fire departments. But then organizations that were strictly part-time or strictly contract started to see like the importance of having physically fit firefighters. So now it has really become the nationally recognized industry standard. And that's what it is. If the importance of it there, if you don't have that test, you can't get hired on a full-time fire department. I mean, I've actually talked to people within my organization that have tested or throughout, the country in my travels that they can't get their job until they get this test. So it carries that much weight.
So on a national level, this is not just the state of Illinois. On a national level, you need to have that CPAT test in order to get hired at a fire department.
Yes. And
I loved what you said. It is an entry level, basically physical fitness screening tool because, well, we'll get into it in a second. Let's digress to what are the events? Because I think maybe some people aren't familiar with it. Most of us probably are, but what are the events?
So it's 8 events, and it's all, in my opinion, very fireground relatable events. It's not just, it's not the hang from a ladder for 90 seconds, right? How is that relatable to the fire service? It has some strength measurements and components, but if you look at these events, you really can determine a fitness level when it comes to job-related activities. So the first one, which is the biggest one, and we hammer this one home all the time, is the Stairmaster event. And the reason why this one's so important is you're cruising along at 60 steps a minute for 3 minutes, which doesn't sound bad. You're like, 3 minutes, but there's 2 issues there that people don't focus on. Is one, you can't hold on to anything, so the handrails are gone, and you have a 75-pound weight vest on. And that's across the board. It doesn't matter if you're 5 feet tall, 10 feet tall, male, female, everyone's wearing that vest. And if you're not training in that specific area, that usually sets you up for failure on that test. But once you leave that rotation, you go every event, so I won't say it between every event, but you walk 85 feet between every event. So there's that aerobic capacity as well as you're moving. You're always kind of moving on this course where the second event, you pull basically 100 feet of hose. around an obstacle, have to drop down to one knee, and then hand over hand another 50 feet of that hose until it crosses a designated marker. Event 3 is a tool carry. You're just carrying 2 saws, 150 feet, specific weights. Everything, since it's a national standardized test, and we can get into that, everything is the same. Everything is weighed and measured to a specific rule and regulation. So once you're done with the tool carry, you go to a ladder raise and extension. It's 2 24-foot extension ladders. One gets raised to the wall in a flat raise. So essentially you're just throwing a 14-foot extension ladder to a wall. Then you're stepping into a box and you're hand over hand raising a 24-foot extension ladder all the way up, all the way down, hand over hand, controlled manner. From there, you go to event 5, which is forcible entry. You hit a prop. It's calibrated at a specific PSI. And every time you hit the prop, essentially the number gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you achieve your goal. So moving on to event 6, you go through a 64-foot, basically U-shaped search box. It's zero visibility. There are obstacles inside this box that you have to go over, under, around. It's really challenging because it puts you in, I'll call it like a compromised position throughout the entire 64 feet, where it really hampers your breathing. And then on top of it, you have the weight vest. So it is tough. You come out of the search box, you go to event 7, which is a 165-pound Rescue Randy drag. And you drag him 70 feet round trip around a barrel, back across the finish line. Then the very last event is us simulating ceiling, pulling ceiling, looking for fire extension. You do a series of evolutions. You push a shield up 3 times. You pull a prop down 5 times for 4 total rounds. The important thing to know for that is when you're training is on top of that shield, there's 60 pounds of weight. So you're not just pushing air. And then when you're pulling on the prop, you're pulling 80 pounds of weight. So again, same thing. You're not just pulling on something that's going up and down. And then once you're done there, that's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. That is the test. 8 events, 10, 20. If you complete it, you pass. If you don't, it's a fail. And going through that entire event, every single rotation, including walking from event to event, has things that will get you warnings and or disqualified. So it's not just, it is a physically demanding test, but you also have to follow directions under stress, which is, it's important. So.
Well, and someone on the Instagram stories yesterday, because I invited people to ask questions because I had the expert coming in, and someone said something to the effect of, I'm super out of shape. How do I train for the CPAT? And my immediate thought was, you really shouldn't be training specifically to the CPAT. You should be in good physical condition. Yes, there's some nuances and there's some ways to do better, right? Some strategies, but really you need to be in great physical shape to pass that test, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you spoke to, whether you meant to or not, you spoke to the reliability of the test. So in scientific method, we're looking for reliable and valid tests. And it is reliable because it is exactly the same if we're doing it MABAS 24, or if I'm going to go do it in, I saw you set one up in Grand Junction, Colorado. It is the exact same. Now let's talk a little bit to the validity of it, because the IAFF was involved in developing the test, right?
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the history, how they determined the events, and more importantly, how did they come to that 10 minutes and 20 seconds?
So in 1996, the IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters, and the International Association of Fire Chiefs came together in a joint labor and management committee to agree on saying, hey, we really should make something standardized. They started to see a little bit of a pattern where some physical fitness tests, they were all over the place. You could design your own at this department, this place would have their own, and there was no standard. And with that, they started seeing the fire service start to shift into almost a unhealthy, non-fit profession, where we all know that you have to be performing at a high level for a very long period of time to be successful. And So they got together, and what they did was they took 10 fire departments from all across the country and Canada, because the test is recognized in Canada as well. And that's it, the USA and Canada for right now. And they took these 10 fire departments. They took current members that were on the fire departments. They took union members. They stayed away from candidates and, of course, stayed away from civilians. They actually stayed away from administrators who had been in the office for a little bit, just because they wanted people that were wearing the equipment day in and day out. So what they did between these 10 fire departments was they said, okay, you know what? What is your standard saw weigh? What is your standard sledgehammer weigh? What is all these different things? What do you have in your still districts, your response areas? And that's how they started to compile the data to put these tests in a specific order. And where they came up with time frames was basically from all walks of life, male, female, younger people on the job, older people on the job, and they just started taking averages and said, you know what, this demographic or this age group completed it in 6 minutes, which is uber end of the scale where that's very hard to do. But then they had a lot of people kind of in that time frame of 10, 11, 12. Okay, why is it at 12? Is something too hard? Is something unrealistic? And then they'd go back to the drawing board. And essentially, that's how over like the average is that 10-20 came about. And from just what I have seen, that is a very realistic number. Very realistic. Now, we have some people that will pass on that very low end scale. And then we have people that push that to 10-19. And then we have people that go, you know, we don't necessarily know what they do to go over, because as soon as it hits 10-20, the test is over.
Oh, they're done. Okay.
The only time we let them go past 10-20, and we can get into this with the process, is if they do a practice test, because that is more of a training session. So we kind of understand, hey, 10-20 was a cutoff. You finished at 12-20. Now let's put you on a performance improvement plan. How do we shave off 2 minutes? So, but that's ultimately, in a nutshell, how they came up with it. So from 96 to about 99, right around 2000, they did a lot of testing. And then really 2000, 2001, 2002, it got pushed out. And right away when it got pushed out, over 900 fire departments picked it up.
Wow.
And now, I mean, it is the industry standard. You may still find a few outliers that do their own physical fitness test. From what I've seen in that realm is some do a double-edged thing. They'll say, okay, you take ours, or if you come in with a valid CPAT, we will accept that also.
Okay.
So, but again, it's very, those are outliers at this point.
So I guess this question never occurred to me until right now. Do non-union departments use the CPAT as well, just because it's an industry standard?
Yes.
Okay. And then I want to quickly dive into one question, because you mentioned USA and Canada. One of my Instagram followers asked about setting it up in Mexico, and I didn't dive into the why, but is that something that you could do, or it's just not feasible right now?
No, it is. One of the companies that I work for is we get a phone call. They call the IFF. The IFF directs them to us and says, hey, we need to set up a licensing agreement with this organization. Go do their course validation, train their people. So it's never just really spread too far. But recently, I would say pre-COVID, and then, of course, this kind of took a automatic halt, was we got a call from the UK. And they said, this is what our physical fitness test is, but you know, we try and stay abreast to everything that's going on within the fire service. What is the CPAT? So we were actually in talks to bring some of them here from the fire department. I can't remember exactly where they were at. And then they wanted us to possibly go there to set up and do almost like the study. How do their tools compare to ours?
Oh, yeah.
Now, it would be different in the sense of who's regulating their test, but it would be somewhat along the same lines. So, because there are some tricky legality things with ultimately, it's like us being paramedics. A medical director holds our license. The IFF gives us a license and approves us to run this test. So if you violate something, they pull your license. You can no longer run this as a third-party company for us. So that's, once you start getting into some international stuff, it does get a little trickier. But.
All right. That makes it a lot more clear. So I wrote a blog, and it's not up on my new website. It was on my old website, and I think I need to put it back up. But it was basically about the 10 minutes and 20 seconds and how if you're going to be on my crew, I would prefer that you're not the 10-minute and 20-second feel-good person, like the couch to 5K or the I'm going to get in shape person. And my analogy was this. Dude, I want to be a Victoria's Secret model. I really do. But I just don't have I don't have the job qualifications. And so the fire service is truly life or death. And so if you are aiming to pass the CPAT at the bare minimum, I think you might be in the wrong career. What do you think about that whole thing?
I would agree. And we, from an educational standpoint, we address that. And we say, like, you can pass this test. You come off the Stairmaster and you move a certain way. I pretty much know at this point know where you're going to be on the timetable. I go, you want to put out 110% from start to finish. Hit the go button. Mm-hmm. It's 10:20. And this is where I have a little bit of bias disagreement, if you will. They don't know their time. Like we do, and we tell them, okay, you passed 9:20, nice job. But when the fire departments find out, it's a pass-fail test.
Oh, okay.
So nobody knows except the candidate, but what does it matter at that point? It's just pass-fail. But you, as the individual, should want to know, like, listen, this is ultimately make-believe. It's all, conditions are pretty favorable for you. When conditions are unfavorable, there is no taking your time. Like, it's go, like you hit the go button. So we try and, pass along the information of get off the Stairmaster and go within the rules that you are allowed to go.
I love that philosophy. And there's a young woman, we're good friends. Her name is Mel, and she's a tremendous athlete. She was a nationally ranked track and field athlete. She coaches Olympic weightlifting. She is a powerhouse. And she messaged me and she's like, Annette, I didn't pass the CPAT. And I said, okay, let's break this down a little bit. And what it came down to truly was her technique. She hadn't gone through the practice and she chose, I guess, is there a female and a male weight vest? There's not.
They are all the same. Yes.
Okay.
Sizes are different.
Maybe it was a size issue. But the vest that she had chosen was detrimental to her. So her big take-home lesson was it is really important to practice it, even though we're not training to just pass the test. Going through that practice was really important for her. What sort of tips would you give people other than practice? What sort of tips would you give people in terms of tactics, strategies to pass?
Yeah, so as far as like the fitness side of it goes, any type of like general physical preparedness is
GPP, my favorite. My favorite.
GPP
yes.
is going to put you above someone who's not doing anything. But with this test, there are portions where you have to essentially be sport specific. And that is, you have to get on a Stairmaster. So I have a lot of people who struggle on the Stairmaster say, well, I was on an elliptical on level 40. Or I was on a Stairmaster, or I was on a treadmill walking on a high incline. And I'm like, listen, I will tell you, as far as just getting out and doing something, good. I'm happy for you that you're on a treadmill, you're on an elliptical, you're moving, but you have to get on a Stairmaster. And the biggest thing that I tell people with the Stairmaster is the test is 60 steps a minute. If you're not comfortable with the Stairmaster, don't jump on that thing at 60 steps a minute. I take them all the way down to 40 steps a minute. You want to be comfortable at 40 steps a minute for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then once you are comfortable there and you're like, okay, now I don't really feel like I'm working, I can do 40 steps a minute at a conversational like pace. Now let's move it to 50 steps a minute. 50 steps a minute is part of the CPAT test in regards to the warm-up. You're on that thing for 20 seconds at 50 steps a minute. Kind of lets you get your bearings. Where do I want to put my hands? How does the Stairmaster adjust to my shoe size, whatever. Now you get comfortable at 50 steps a minute in the same way you did for 40 steps a minute. As soon as I can have a good conversation at 50 steps, now I move it to that 60 steps a minute. And once I get comfortable at that 60 steps a minute, now I throw some weight on my back. And I don't put you with weight at that 60 steps a minute. I bring you back down because your fitness level allows you to do 40, 50, 60 steps a minute with no weight. But I throw weight on your back, you're going to be the same at that 60 steps a minute as if you had never trained before, because we are working in a different energy system. You're working in just an uncomfortable situation. You're not used to that. And I don't throw 75 pounds of weight on your back right away. We might start with 50 pounds or 40 pounds, just something that you kind of can get a feeling for. So that ultimately is get to the gym and get on a Stairmaster. And here's a little secret for everybody out there. When you go to the gym and you get on a Stairmaster, find the big button on the computer module that says fitness tests. Scroll through that, and at about 3-4 options in, there'll be 4 big letters, CPAT. All you have to do is hit start, and the CPAT test is programmed because of an agreement that the IF has with a lot of these manufacturers, because the Stairmasters that were originally used in the early 2000s, they don't make them anymore. You can buy them refurbed and all those types of things, but now there's new Stairmasters out there, so they specifically put the CPAT test in there. So if you want to feel what the transition's like, if you want to actually just go on this thing for 320, you have that capability. That resource is out there for you, but you have to get on a Stairmaster. The last thing I'll say about the Stairmaster, 2 things, is once you start getting comfortable on the Stairmaster, stay at 40 steps a minute. Say you do your 40 steps for 5 minutes. Come off the Stairmaster, do 25 burpees, 25 squats. Perform something after you're under a little bit of stress on a Stairmaster. That is very important. So I like to build that Stairmaster into like some circuit training. Even if we're going to go 2 minutes on the Stairmaster, and then we're going to come off, we're going to go 2 minutes of push-ups, burpees, squats, and some type of number sequence. Then we jump back on the Stairmaster, because that just starts to put a person in being uncomfortable, but you have to push. Because if you come off the Stairmaster, we say, okay, you just failed, because you can't come off the Stairmaster when the test is live. So that Stairmaster is number 1. It's very important.
I'm really, I love that tip about looking for the test on the Stairmaster. And I just thought of, while you were saying that, the Gherkin protocol. So the IAFF fitness testing VO2 max test is also on a lot of treadmills if you look for it. So 2 program things in there that you can use to sort of self-evaluate. The other thing I heard from Alex is that although he and I could decide to do a bodybuilding competition, we could decide 12 weeks out or 8 weeks out and diet down and go on stage. He'd probably do better than I would at this point. But although we could decide to do that, it's a lot more effective, and it works a lot better if we make that decision 18, 24, 36 weeks out. And so what I'm hearing from him too is that giving yourself time to train for the CPAT test is of the utmost importance. So waiting until 2 weeks before, how does that work?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay. That's amazing. I love that you said that. So training for the CPAT, or training to pass the CPAT, let me rephrase that. Training to pass the CPAT is important to get hired. But I think many of our firefighters forget how important it is to stay in good physical condition after they get hired. They're kind of like, whoa, I'm so excited I got hired, and then nothing. So tell me your philosophy on staying in good physical condition for firefighting. Go.
I think, first of all, from an organizational standpoint, there should be some type of standard. And there is no standard. So why do firefighters ultimately fall behind the trend? It's because they're not held to a standard. how do they get on the job? Because there's a standard that was established. So we worry about the people that are coming on, but we don't worry about the people that are on. So then, okay, if we can't do anything about the organizations holding a standard or setting a standard, then you have to hold yourself accountable. And usually within that class, I usually try and put you in two categories. To your company, you're either an asset or a liability. And I have unfortunately had an experience where someone's physical fitness level stopped us from performing our job function because we had to shift focus to this person because we were tasked with an extremely challenging situation. But the people that you saw that were physically fit were able to push through those barriers and do the work. So I will say to anybody out there, if you're not doing anything, just start doing something. Even if you're walking on a treadmill for 20 minutes after you eat or 20 minutes in the morning, there are tons of benefits just from walking 20 minutes, from, losing weight, diabetes prevention. There's so much stuff out there just from walking that will be a benefit. And then once we get you to a certain point, now we'll start sprinkling in a couple other things. But ultimately, it's going to fall on you. And what do you want out of your career? How do you want to perform within your company? It's got to fall on you. And if you don't know, there's tons of resources out there, especially within, the fire service. There's free things. There's IAFF peer fitness trainers that will design you a program to do on duty, to do things off duty. And I tell guys, work out on duty, because tell me another profession where you can get paid to work out outside of being a professional athlete or maybe a personal trainer. You are getting paid to work out. And some of the facilities that are now going up in fire departments, they're nicer than a facility that you may be paying $100 a month for. So I understand everybody's busy. I am not on that train of having that as an excuse. Like, give me 10 minutes and we will work, and that can be with something that warms you up, cools you down. And then we hit something for 10 minutes and it'll work. It'll be effective.
Do you think it's ego? Do you think it's like, I'm a 40-year-old firefighter, I'm a little bit overweight, I know that I'm having some issues with my fitness, but is it ego? What is it?
I think maybe there's a part of it is ego, but ultimately I really think a lot of it falls back to not being educated and being scared to fail at something. We are all so like alpha orientated, where we are out on the front line and we are and people don't want to fail. And if you really have never done anything in the fitness world, health and wellness, and you see burpees, power cleans, and you're like, I have no idea what that is, and now my ego doesn't allow me to ask what that is, then I think that's a problem. But from our standpoint, yourself, me, then I think that's where we come in, and from an educational standpoint, and we say, listen, what I'm doing out there, I don't expect you to do. Maybe one day you get to that point, but I think each person outside of candidates with CPAT, you have to talk to them differently. So when I do talk to the 40 or 45, 50-year-old who's got 20, 25 years, my focus now isn't always, yes, it is still company-based, and hey, you know what? We want you to be 100% healthy. We don't want you to get hurt, but what do you want to do with your grandkids when you retire? You want to be able to pick them up. You want to be able to play catch with them. But you can't do that if you have a sedentary lifestyle. So let's go out. Let's move. Let's get on a Stairmaster. I'll walk on a treadmill with you if that's the motivation you need. So I think from an educational standpoint, each person you have to almost talk to in a different way.
And you didn't say these exact words, but it comes down to just meeting everyone where they are and being okay with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
everyone has different skill levels, and you have to, almost like if you were training someone in an engine class, you can't necessarily handle everybody the same exact way.
Don't let your ego be the reason you go off the job early on a heart attack, or you end the job and you're broken. Don't let your ego be the reason. There's enough chances that that's going to happen without you adding to that. Well, before we transition to your training, because I'm fascinated by this, before we transition to that, Was there anything we should have talked about with the CPAT that I just kind of blew it and missed?
So the entire like testing process is very important because there are things that you have to do that greatly enhance your chances of passing the test. One is when you sign up for everything, you have some options. One is an orientation. The orientation is 100% free. You just come in for 45 minutes to an hour. You watch a video on the CPAT. It's pretty educational, where it started, where it's at, where it's going, and then they take you through the test. But then you actually get to walk out onto the CPAT floor with subject matter experts, career firefighters, proctors, and they take you step by step by step. And they even throw out some tips and tricks that you don't see on just the standard video from the IFF. They will tell you little things about where your body should be, how you turn when you swing the sledgehammer. When you don't do that, when you say, I waive my right to that, we will literally have you come in, fill out your paperwork, we hand you off to a proctor, then it's 3, 2, 1, go. And when people fail and they ask, well, I didn't know, my first question is, did you do an orientation? And when they say no, then I explain to them the benefits. So when you have to come back, do the orientation. So on top of the orientation, you are allowed to also do a practice test or 2 practice tests. Take advantage of at least one, because if you're not sure, as much as I put some emphasis and weight on going on Google and watching videos, it's important, but it's not as important as putting your hands on something. So when you do a practice test, you get paired with 2 proctors, 1 candidate, 2 proctors, and they put you on the Stairmaster. You did hopefully your orientation with that, and it's your show. If you understand that my fitness level is not where it needs to be, and you only do 1 minute on the stairs, you can say, I'm done on the stairs today. Okay, let's move you to event 2. Then say you get down the line to event 5, and you're like, you know what? My fitness level is not where it's at. I want to take the weight vest off. Fine, we'll take the weight vest off. So you literally, I take it in 2 ways. I go, 1, it's a workout for you, but 2, it's extremely educational, because now you can go, okay, where am I at? Where do I need to be? And what are some things that I need to do to get me there? And we have some benchmarks and timeframes for people. Like, I get it all the time. Well, how can I come back in 2 weeks? Absolutely not. You can. I don't want to see you waste your money, but you are 3 months away. And unfortunately, sometimes that's a shock to people's system, but it's the truth. And this is a $175 test. So every time you fail, you come back, you have to pay again. So it adds up. So make sure you take advantage of the orientation, take advantage of the practice. And the last thing that we just started at MABAS 24, and again, we now do basically a mentoring class, because we saw a need for education. We do get a lot of candidates that come in and say, hey, I really don't know anything about the test. I'm like, okay, that's fine. They're like, I looked some stuff up online, but I don't work out that much. So what we do is we now run about a 90-minute session. It's outside of the orientation, the practice. It falls into the IFF's recruiting and mentoring program. And then we also have a little side thing where it's like a $50, I call it an investment, because if, it's $50, you invest your time. We will do like a pseudo orientation, a walk and talk with the equipment, but then we put you through a CPAT-based workout. And we get your heart rate up. We have you complete some tasks. We have you walk 85 feet, put you through a workout again, and we leave you there with a really good understanding of, 1, where is my fitness level? Because I hear it every single time we test. Oh, I work out. Okay. And that's fine. I don't know what you're doing to work out, but I would say over 50% of the people that say, I work out, I don't need an orientation, unfortunately, they end up failing, because they are training in a world, an energy system that does not allow them to do what they need to do when they get in a stressful test situation like this. And it is stressful for some people, especially when they know, I have a full-time job riding on this. And then you have, 4 or 5 proctors there that are giving you your vest. They're talking to you. They're very uniformed because it's so standardized. So like, they're not always the most conversational. They are, but they have to be in a certain, realm. So it can be intimidating for people. So sometimes we hear that, like, I was in my own head, and okay, well, we can work on that too. But yeah, so orientation, practice, look into, some type of mentoring program, go online. There are CPAT videos out there. There are some resources that you can do on your own as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And the flyer that you sent me recently, that's the $50 class.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I love that. Candidates, take the class. All right. We exchange jokes once in a while about how you wake up and choose violence. I'm always laughing. Tell me about your general training program that keeps you in good physical condition for the job in general.
Yeah, so my normal thing is I kind of like to be good at everything and not great in one area. So my primary form of training would be like a CrossFit style, high intensity interval training system where I am always working in different time domains. Some days I will literally do a 7-minute workout and that's it. I'm done for the day. Other times I will do a 60-minute workout. And then there's other times that I will do 3 training sessions in a day. I always like to kind of put my body through different things that unknowable type mentality. Especially,
that's a John Welborn. I think he says that all the time.
He does
unknown
like that
and
one.
unknowable.
And just because really I look at it from a job standpoint, but also a life standpoint. If I need to go pick up bags of concrete and put them on a shelf, I want to be able to have the capacity and the capability to do that. So I would say, 60%, 70%, I like to say, okay, this is strictly going to help me in the fire service, help me in that world. But I also look at, 30% is going to help me in my everyday life. So I always am kind of training in those differences. But then the thing I do like about the CrossFit, methodology, if you will, is it's always different. I never really get bored. It's got weightlifting, running, gymnastics. It's got all body weight. It's got all those types of things that I enjoy. It's fun for me.
How are you at the gymnastics stuff? I am objectively terrible.
I work on it constantly, and I'm pretty confident in my skill set there.
I remain objectively terrible at gymnastics stuff. It's not good.
I like when it pops up in a workout. I'll put it that way.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, you're also you're swimming a little bit. You have like a little tiny swim coming up and you're doing a fundraiser. So tell the listeners all about that.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I actually went through a little phase where I was getting a little bored with some stuff. As much as my training keeps me always fresh, I started to kind of be like, what can I do that would really be hard? Something I don't do often. So I found this 4-mile open water swim.
Oh my God.
And I had never swam before. I found it 6 months before the actual event. And I was on my computer and I signed up for it right then and there. And at the time I signed up for it, I did not have a gym membership that had a pool either. And it was winter. So I was kind of like, well, I'll just have to figure this out as I go. And essentially that's what I did. I got in a pool. The first time I got in a pool, I didn't have goggles, which I realized those are important to, actually truly swim. And got just really comfortable in the water. But I was swimming almost 3 to 5 times a week. And then I got into the open water portion in Lake Michigan. And the cause that I'm swimming for is something that's very close to me. It's through the Navy SEAL Foundation. I have a very close friend of mine who separated from that community, and we actually met through CPAT channels. He was looking for some CPAT training advice for friends, and he found me on Instagram through like a hashtag or something like that, and we just became close. He lives in New Jersey, and I signed up for it, and he actually was there. He was swimming in the event himself. So I went last year, and I say it was one of the most surreal things I've ever done. It was extremely hard. The water was 60 degrees, so it was extremely cold.
Immediate no.
I will say I like to put myself in a very, very uncomfortable situation. And about 5 to 7 minutes in, I realized how easy you can quit something. And it came in to my like psyche. Like, it's very easy to put your hand up. There's a safety person over there. Big deal. You don't know anybody here. You raised money. You still did a good thing. But then, of course, you understand, okay, what am I going to feed right now? So that goes away right away. But yeah, water's an equalizer. Cold water is a separator. And so we finished that. And after everything, you do meet and greets, you do after party. And I said that's just going to be something that I do every year going forward. And it's one special thing that was very near and dear to me from last year was the Navy SEAL Foundation invites Gold Star families to these events, and they take care of the Gold Star families. Well, I started to be pretty close with the event coordinator, he was also in the military. We were talking back and forth, and he's like, hey, I see what you're doing. I see your training. So I am going to assign you to a Gold Star family. There's cool. Only a few of them. And it happened to be, her name is Cindy Dietz. Her son was Danny Dietz. He was part of Lieutenant Michael Murphy's SEAL team that got killed in Operation Red Wings in June 28th. And she was there. So at the end of the swim, she greeted me. She gave me, the completion stuff, and we've kept in contact ever since. And it was just, what do you say to a Gold Star mother, right? And it was very it was just surreal. It was something that was very, very special. I'll never forget it. I have a lot of the stuff that she gave me hanging up my office at the firehouse. So I look at it every single, day I work. But and that's coming up again June 18th. Which is, Father's Day this year, which is, pretty significant. But same thing, 4 miles. It's in Boston. So outside of the swim, it's just an incredible, it's my favorite, city to be in. So training's going well. That's where I'm going after this.
This is the literal definition of that chart. Have you seen it? Fuck around, find out. The more you fuck around, the more you found out. You just decided to swim. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And now you're a pretty good swimmer.
I am. I'm very comfortable. And actually, it took me into a different world. It took me into our MABAS Division's dive team.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, because they had swim tryouts almost, and they had swim tests. And so I went through the whole thing. I did open water, full face, dry suit, ERDI-1, some underwater crime scene investigation stuff.
That's cool.
It was really cool. And it took me, so that was kind of cool. And then with that, really quick, I was after the swim and training, I got done, and I was kind of like, okay, I love it. Good in the water. What else do I hate? And I was like, well,
what else do you hate?
I really hate going on long runs.
So, I saw that.
So
marathoning.
I signed up for the Chicago Marathon this year. We'll see how that goes.
You got to get off the track, though. You will drive yourself nuts.
Yes. I am already starting to see that. Yeah. So
no, Prairie Path is where it's at. And I want to make sure that the listeners understand this is a fundraiser, and I'm going to put your link in the show notes so that you can support the Navy SEAL Foundation and Alex's fundraiser. Hopefully you'll get a lot of people reaching out. I wanted to finish up with one thing because you mentioned you have an office. Now, I don't have it. I mean, I do have an office, but I share it with 2 other lieutenants. But you have an office because you were recently promoted to lieutenant. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're also now the training training officer. So I wanted to get your perspective on what your leadership style, your leadership philosophy, and how is it being a lieutenant?
So as far as being a lieutenant, I love it. Really being able to kind of control the day and the influence that you can immediately have on the company, both for the good and the bad. So for my leadership style is, I always said that a shepherd should smell like his sheep.
Oh, interesting.
So that was actually, I stole that. I'll give him the credit. Pope Francis said that. And so anything that they're doing, I'm doing. Whether it be training, in the kitchen, on the bay floor, I am doing that. Now, they do understand that there are times that I have to break away to get, training stuff for the fire department.
Stupid Target Solutions stuff.
Yeah, we know about that. Yes.
Worst.
And, but for the nuts and bolts of things, I think you have to be with your troops, and I am. So if that means at 7:00 at night, because we've had a long day, we've all been together, if I got to get in the office for a couple hours and work a little later than I'd like to, well, that's the sacrifice that I'm willing to make, to just know that I'm always going to be right there with them, never going to leave them kind of out. And, when we're doing training, I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I don't like it, where you have the bosses that are kind of standing there with their arms crossed watching you down and off an air pack. Listen, I need to work on those skills too. So, and I think that does something for the company integrity when the bosses are on the bay floor in the circle, donning and doffing an air pack, stretching a line, doing those things as well. So that's ultimately kind of where my leadership style is. But as of right now, like, I got promoted on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and I love it. It's been great. Had a couple good fires with the men, and so it's been good.
I love your philosophy, but I also want to know what you miss most about being a blue shirt.
Lack of decision making. Just tell me where you want me to go. Because, now we go somewhere and all of a sudden I have 5 sets of eyes just looking at me. And I'm kind of like, oh boy.
They're like owls in the dark.
But I loved being a blue shirt. I loved stretching and just go through that door. You got it.
I don't think I realized it at the time, but I actually miss most being a driver operator. I really enjoyed driving.
Okay.
But it's been 10 years now almost. So it's been a long time. When people see me driving now, first of all, it's a bad day. When I'm driving,
yes, it
means we're going to the hospital or something like that. But they're like, oh, Lieutenant Zapp, I didn't even know you could drive. Well, it's been a while. All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping this up. I want to be respectful of your time, and you have to go swim. How far are you swimming today?
It's going to kind of be a light day. Training's been a little heavy lately, so probably like 1.5 miles broken into like interval work.
Good Lord. You have to go swim 1.5 miles. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with? Any parting words, sage advice, or do you want to just drop the mic?
I'd say, as far as, just surrounding this podcast, one, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love getting this message out. But if you're not doing anything as of right now, just start somewhere. Start somewhere, and you will just naturally start to progress and get better. And then once you get to a certain point, we can dial it up, ramp it up. And the very last thing, and then we can leave it on this, if you are testing for a fire department and you think you might get a phone call, keep your physical fitness level high and keep your CPAT card active. Because usually you have 1 year. So, for example, if you're going to take a test May 28th, the fire department will tell you have to have a valid CPAT card May 27th from 23, May 27th, 22. Well, if the test is the 28th and you don't have a card within that time frame, you are invalid. So the reason why it's important to keep your fitness level up is because you never know when that phone call is going to come. And if you have slacked off and now they call you and you say, okay, I'll go take my CPAT tomorrow and I will see you this weekend, you better be ready to go. It's very important to keep your fitness level up. And then that will carry into the fire service. You always need to keep your fitness level up. So leave it at that.
I love that. That's a really good message. All right. Well, we're going to drop the mic now. So thank you so much for listening. Please click the link in the show notes. Go donate to Alex's fundraiser. And this has been AZ and AG, and we are officially out.